So the next and final presentation we have for this afternoon for the Informatics Forum is presented by Alan Lage again, and it will be highlighting the FOCUS card view feature.
There we go. Sorry, guys. The mute button got away from me. So hello again. This time, I'm going to take a little bit of a different route and discuss FOCUS card view. Could, Joanna, can you confirm you can see my screen?
Yes, I can.
Excellent. All right. So for today's agenda, for those of you who may not be familiar with FOCUS, I'll give an overview of FOCUS, just a brief.
Alan, so sorry. Your sidebar is included in the display.
Let me try this again. Stop sharing. That's odd. Yeah, give me 1 second, guys. Sorry. Okay, that should work now. All right, how about now?
Looks great.
All right, thank you, Joanna, for that.
Welcome.
All right, where was I? Yeah, so for those of you who are not familiar with FOCUS, I'll give a brief overview of this module that we have, a web-based module. I'll go into describing Assay View. Those of you who have Regmol will be familiar with Assay View. We have the same functionality in FOCUS. And then I'll get into the development of Card View, which is designed to be a complement to Assay View. And at the very end, I'll show how card views can be designed by the user themselves to be able to manipulate and view the data that they want to see. Okay, and then I'll save some time for Q&A. This one won't be as long as the Dell one, so there should be time for some questions afterwards. So what is FOCUS? FOCUS is essentially our web-based data analysis and visualization tool that we developed and released last year to fill in the gap that we had from Regmol with regards of visualization and just filtering through the bioassay data that's collected when doing drug discovery. And so the beauty of it is that it integrates with Regmol. It's a thin client, and that it's web-based, and that it's evolving to meet our clients' needs. So what I have here are just a couple of screenshots of the capabilities, and I'll go through more as I click on the bullet points, but it gives you an overall view of what the capabilities are. So if you do have Regmol, you can synchronize data sets that you've created in Regmol. And what I have in this screenshot is an assay view in Regmol, and it can synchronize and be pulled to FOCUS. So here we notice kinase A primary is also pulled into our FOCUS module. So I went from Regmol to FOCUS seamlessly. And the beauty of this is that when you update data within the Regmol's assay view, right? Let's say you test compounds maybe 3, 4, 5, 6 times, that data set, as it's updated, can be updated within FOCUS. So you don't need to re-upload anything, it's updated. That's if you have Regmol. If you don't have Regmol, it's also useful in that you can upload or import flat data files, either as CSV or SDF files to contain structures. And you can also update these data files manually within FOCUS. So there's no need for Regmol. You actually can integrate it, although it's just a bit of a more manual step. Once you've inputted this data set within FOCUS, you're then able to filter and sort and visualize some complex data. So in the screenshot here, we have, in this case, it's the data that we had gotten from the assay view in Regmol, and you're able to do perhaps substructure searches for certain scaffolds. You can utilize sliders to implement filtering. You can do text filtering to isolate maybe a specific assay that you were running for some kinase program. Once you filtered all that data and narrowed down your data set, then you can use our visualization options to actually plot this data. We have several different types of charts, linear, scatter plot, bar chart, and a radar chart. What I have shown here is a scatter plot chart, a linear plot chart that showcases our cheminformatics capabilities. So in this chart, we have two compounds. One is pretty potent, 120 picomolar, but the solubility is very poor. We can quickly see here, though, that there are a number of other potent compounds, but this one has a much improved solubility property that we want to see. Potency may not be in the picomolar range, but it's acceptable at 4 nanomolar. So again, and you're able to paste or sticky tag the actual compound structure and the limited data set that you've chosen into this visualization. This can be saved, shared with colleagues, etc. So it gives you an insight on how we can use FOCUS. We also have an SAR analysis and R group decomposition capabilities. This then utilizes more of a traffic light scheme for coloring the results of your data set. And in this case, we have a radar chart that displays desired properties, desired potencies of compounds, and also it breaks down all of the compounds into different R groups. So it allows you to conduct structure-activity relationships analysis with ease. And again, the overall goal here at Silogens is just to break down any silos and to be able to collaborate with your colleagues. So with this module, you're able to share your visualizations with your entire team, as long as they have access to the same project. Okay, so that's FOCUS. Now, you remember I discussed importing data sets directly either from Regmol or manually. That's where Assay View comes into place. An Assay View is essentially a database of different bioassay data sets. So you can track a list of compounds and their assay data in real time, import it into FOCUS, and use this to do your data visualization that I was describing earlier. Again, as I mentioned, if you want to synchronize it from Regmol and you do have Regmol, you simply click on, I believe it's this little green arrow. It'll bring up this pop-up window that allows you to synchronize. You can do all the assay views that you've put in there, or select the ones you want to update, or you can do it manually. And this is just another pop-up window of how you simply upload your data file with updated data. So once you've got your data in there, you can also add calculated properties. You have the ability to insert some in silico calculated properties that we do offer, and use it to supplement your data for further analysis and filtering. But once that's done, you then visualize the data, and it tends to be very protocol centric, which is great when you're trying to do SAR analysis. But one of the drawbacks to a protocol centric view is that it doesn't allow you to do other types of analysis. So for example, if you're interested in a hit, and you're interested to see what the selectivity is, what other assays has this compound been tested in? Assay View may not be the ideal way of gathering this data. It would require you to create an Assay View that would have the data that you're looking for, rather than searching for it easily across different data sets. And this is where CardView came in. CardView was developed to be complementary to Assay View. So in CardView, instead of being a protocol-centric data analysis tool, it's more compound-centric. And the example I have here, we have a compound and a variety of different cards that have been designed and implemented into a board that has different data sets associated with it, regardless of the assays that it was run on. So in this case, I can tell how many kinases has this compound been tested on. Is it a promiscuous compound? Do we even have the compound? There's a link to the barcode to our inventory module. You can pivot data. You can arrange the data sources as you see fit. And now you're able to do the analysis that Assay View maybe is not as amenable to searching. So you can certainly create and place different cards from individual data sources. Some of the examples that I mentioned, the structure, the in silico properties, different assay results, your inventory, etc. You can show several cards for one compound, as it's displayed over here. In a little bit, I'll show you how you can actually create them. It also takes advantage of not just searching for compounds, but it has advanced search capabilities. So if you click on the search button, the color of your card view or your board will turn green. And now you're able to actually do a comprehensive search that takes advantage of our indexing features in all of our Siligence software. So you could retrieve compounds that satisfy certain search constraints. So for example, here, I want any compound that has an IC50 of less than 100, or it should be nanomolar, less than 100 nanomolar, and I'll type this in with the less than modifier, click on search, and what will happen is it'll bring up a number of compounds. So right now I'm viewing compound 16 of 21 that it identified, and it tells me, yep, absolutely, you have this compound is less than 100 nanomolar at 10 nanomolar. Now you can render different data types in these cards. It can be text, it can be a number, images. Sometimes you'll have curve images or other types of image data that you'll need for the compound, as well as curves. I'll get into a little bit more detail with the curves in the coming couple of slides. Right now we support two types of curves, a static image and one that's actually rendered by Siligence modules. And I'll get into that in either the next slide or the next two slides. Also, this enables hyperlinks to display in the cards. So what do I mean by that? You'll notice in this inventory table, or I'm sorry, this inventory card, which is a table type of card, you have several different hyperlinks. The barcode of the container that this really ugly, greasy structure is stored in, the owner who created this, and even the stockroom location. If you were to click on this, what would end up happening is if you have inventory, it would open up our inventory module and guide you to that exact location in inventory. Now, if you don't have inventory, we certainly can configure to connect to a third-party software via APIs. But ideally, you would have our modules that this would then seamlessly integrate with. You're also able to aggregate and pivot the results. I think I have a slide on that coming up. But the beauty of it is now you have a compound-centric view in FOCUS. Okay, yeah. All right. Advanced search. So as I mentioned earlier, you can search by using the structure box, either exact structure or a substructure search. I showed earlier the result, the assay result range. I believe the example was less than 100 nanomolar. You could also type in the exact compound ID. If you have a favorite compound that you're tracking for your project and you want to see what other assays it's been tested on, or maybe there's PK data associated with perhaps some toxicity data that you want to implement there, you simply type in that assay, that compound ID or regmol ID if you have regmol, and it'll immediately take you to that. In this example here, I show a specific a substructure scaffold where I'll search for it, and it brings up 201 compounds that have this substrate or the scaffold related to it. Okay. You can also manage the queries. So instead of having to search over and over again, you could save your queries. You can manage them so that they can be shared with colleagues, or you could just wipe it clean and start all over with this little drop-down box over here. Okay, now I'll get into the card types. There are, I believe, 4 different card types, maybe 3 or 4 different card types for card view. The first one is a structure card type, which can hold either the small molecule or our biologics structure. It's essentially JS-Draw. You double click on it and a JS-Draw window will pop open and you can populate it with your compound or your molecular entity of choice. You'll have another table, a card that's called the row. And this is self-explanatory. It's simply a row of different data information. And it can be a vertical row or it can be a horizontal row as you see here. It really depends on how you want your data displayed. We also have tables. The inventory card highlights the table. This is a table, almost Excel-like spreadsheet, Excel spreadsheet-like table that contains, in this case, it's inventory information. And you also have what we call a pivot table. A pivot table can also be vertical or horizontal, but this allows you to pivot aggregated data in a way that makes sense to you. If you have regmol, the rule set that the pivot table will obey can be determined using our protocol feature. So you would go to your protocol, and in the data field, you would select the group by option. We could always show you this in a demo if anybody's interested, if you have the regmol feature. All right. We also have the drill down capability. So for example, in this screenshot, it may be difficult to see for some viewers, but there are 3 small dots in the upper right-hand corner. If you were to click on these 3 small dots, a pop-up window would appear that shows you the individual values for each assay result that you have for the different, I believe these are kinases in this example. So you can really drill down on the individual value. Otherwise, it'll show you an aggregated value with a standard deviation. Again, you can set what type of aggregation you'd like, a geometric mean, arithmetic mean, it's usually geometric, or you can drill down and click on, by a hyperlink, the individual value itself. Again, if you have regmol, clicking on this hyperlink will open up the regmol module and lead you to the page where this assay result was generated. All right, same thing with inventory. And also, excuse me, the structure page. So here, for example, if I have number of rotatable bonds, number of proton H-bond acceptors, or if I were to click on these hyperlinks, it would open up the structure page in regmol. Okay. Finally, well, not finally, I'm halfway done. Curve rendering capabilities. So we have 2 types of curve rendering capabilities currently in the card view. One is the static image. Again, if you are using regmol, you may use, for example, GraphPad Prism to generate certain curves, and you will save these as images and upload them into a regmol, or you can upload them yourself as a database file within FOCUS. This can be stored as an image. Now you'll notice this image here is rather small. It's hard to see. If you double click on it, it'll expand to a larger screen so that you can actually see the image. We can handle multiple image aggregation. However, we'll probably display the first image when you do expand upon it. But you'll be able to see different images here if you have more than one curve image. I'm sorry, more than one static image on there. If you do use our software to generate the curves, you have a few more options. So with our curves, you're able to expand. Also, right click to bring up a pop-up window that allows you to view the curve in a larger window, or also view the raw assay data. My apologies for this curve. This is the only screenshot I could get from slides, but you can tell maybe the compound wasn't behaving as you wanted it to behave. But in a pop-up window, you would see the curve in a much clearer fashion. Here, we're also demonstrating the curve overlay feature that we have that I'll discuss in a few bullet points. But you're able to see this in an enhanced view. And also, while you're in that enhanced view, you right-click, you're actually also able to see the raw assay data for that curve. I realize that there's a number of curves here, but this would probably be the first curve you would see. There's also curve fitting capabilities. If you guys remember earlier, here, when I click on View Large Window, if I were to expand on the large window, see this curve, right-click, I would get another pop-up window that would allow me to view the raw assay data, but I would actually be able to alter it or do refits on this assay data for this curve. And I could save that fit. So for example, if I wanted to exclude some points in this curve, I could exclude it to increase the R² value. And then if I'm happy with that, I could then save it. And then the curve will change based on the editing that I did within FOCUS. Okay. And also we have the curve overlays. And again, my apologies for this example. I inherited these slides, but if you have more than one curve generated data set for a compound, you're able to see the overlays. Now, granted, if you really wanted to go in and drill down on the curves to see what the status is, you would be able to do so using regmol or the ELN that actually was created to do these curve fittings. Okay. Okay, so how do you do this? How do you make a card view? There's a section in FOCUS that allows you to edit the card view, and it's called the card designer. The card designer consists of two sections. The left-hand side is a data source tree, and the right-hand side is your canvas. So we are able to use we're able to populate this data currently from Regmol and from inventory. We're working on being able to generate it from third-party software via APIs. But for now, if you have Regmol and inventory, you would be able to populate this data tree or data source tree, and then simply drag and drop what you would like to see into your designer. Once you've dragged and dropped the assay of choice or the data source of choice, you're able to resize it. And you're also able to change the settings of this card, as well as what's inside will be editable. Okay, so the card settings. In this screenshot here, I have two different cards in the canvas, a structure card, and then some assay that I got from the data source. If I were to highlight this cog icon, I could actually change the title and the dimensions of the card itself, right? So you'll hit a pop-up window. I could give it a different name. I can adjust the height if I'd like to. In this case, I have a vertical stacking of the data sources. If I uncheck this, it would be a long horizontal card. And in this instance, I indicate that the card type is a row card type, meaning that the data that's going to be displayed here will be displayed in a row-like fashion. Alternatively, I can also highlight a specific data source using this icon, and it'll open up another pop-up window that allows me to edit or add more data to this data source. With this, I could add a hyperlink. In this case, it's a Regmol hyperlink. I could change the type of aggregation that is displayed. So for EC50, I could change if it's geometric or arithmetic mean. I can also change the number of decimal places that data is displayed in to 1 decimal, maybe up to 3. It really depends on the type of data and how I want to see it displayed. Excuse me. We also have another type of card called the pivot type. The pivot card, again, multiple things that you can do here. In this screen, I'm showing that I can check off this assay PK data source, but I can actually uncheck certain things that I don't necessarily want to be displayed in the card. So in this example, I've unchecked raw table, brain levels, and the per ROS concentration Cmax, and I don't want that displayed here. I really don't care about that. Interestingly, though, in the species data source, I can set this to be a, if I set the card to be a pivot type, I can then choose, I want species to be the data source that I want to pivot. Again, if you're using Regmol, in the protocol, you would simply select this data field and set the group by attribute to true. But that would be for another demo. You can also do multiple pivoting for multiple columns. So it's not only species. If there was another data source here that had the group by attribute set to true, it would appear in this drop-down menu, and I can also select it as a data source that I can then pivot as I see fit. All right, and lastly, you can have multiple cards for a single data source. And what I mean by that is, in this example, I have an assay PK data source that I want to put in there. I've already populated it once with image, curve, raw table, and bioavailability, but I can create the same card with the same data source and have different data fields attached to it. A pop-up window will ask you, are you sure you want to do this? You've already created this card, but this is fine. Because of the editing features, I can name this, these two cards different, give them different titles, but I can have different data displayed that comes from the same data source, whether that's an assay from Regmol, inventory, or maybe an in silico predictive property capability that we have built into FOCUS. I think that's it. Yeah. So yeah, in a nutshell, this is the card designer that was implemented. I think it was worked on the beginning of December of last year, and a lot of effort has gone into bringing this up to speed. We still have a long way to go. I think there are many more options that we can add to the card designer, but I really do feel that this is a nice complement to the current assay view that we have for FOCUS. And with that, I'll be happy to take questions.
Thank you, Alan. We do have a question in the chat box. The question is FOCUS web-based or is it a desktop package?
That's a great question. Yeah, it is a web-based tool. It is not desktop. It is web-based, and it's designed to integrate with our own Regmol module. And as you see, also inventory.
Hola, Alan.
Sí, hola.
Hola, ¿qué tal? I
Hello.
have two questions. One
Yes.
of them is card are going to be an add-on for Focus, and the second one is when are going to be available Focus?
So, okay, good question. Card is not an add-on for Focus. It's a new feature that will be coming out soon in the latest version of Focus. And Jim may correct me on the availability of that. I need to ask our developers if it's currently available or if it will be implemented soon. And your second question, I'm sorry, what was your second question?
Yes, when are going to be available Focus?
Oh, Focus is available already. So Focus is another module that we offer, and it was released in December of 2020. And oh, sorry, that's what happens when you work from home. It was released in December of 2020, and it is already available. I'll be more than happy to give you a demo on that. Okay.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, if there aren't any more questions, this concludes our presentations for today. We'd like to thank everybody for joining us for our 2021 Informatics Forum. As always, if there are any follow-up questions or if there's any way that we can help, please do email info@saligens.com, and we will reply as soon as we can.